Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project with your host Mick Spears. We bring you thought-provoking guests and topics every week to challenge your thinking about leadership. Our aim is to help you become the leader that you wish you always had as we learn together and lead together. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. I'm greatly honored today to be joined by Patrick Thean. Patrick is the CEO of Rhythm Systems and the best-selling author on Wall Street Journal and USA Today of a book called Rhythm: How to Achieve Breakthrough Execution and Accelerate Growth. And we're going to focus a lot on that book today, but he's also an author of two other books, Predictable Results and Execute Without Drama. And both of those have got very interesting titles as well. And we may get into that category, but we are going to talk about this thing called rhythm. And it's going to be a really interesting discussion about what on earth does Patrick mean by this word rhythm, and how can we put this framework that he's put together into practice to improve our execution with our teams, with our businesses. Patrick prides himself on guiding CEOs to achieve their dreams through this framework. So I'm very excited to be talking with him today. So without any further ado, Patrick, please do say hello to the audience. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your background and what led you into this kind of work and what led you to be with us today.
First, thank you very much, Mick, for inviting me on your podcast. You have a fantastic podcast and a fantastic audience. So I'm thrilled to be here today. So thank you very, very much. First, my background. So, I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer by training. And I went to work for Oracle Corporation when I left school. And that's really the only real job I ever had was with Oracle for 2 years and 9 months. And during those days, Oracle was I joined around the $250 million mark. And I was there till it was about $1.1 billion. And Oracle grew about 100% every year for the first 13 years of their life. So back then, that was very rare to see. Now, today, of course, you've got some crazy startups that do that. But back then, Oracle, I think, was one of the fastest companies to $1 billion. So after 2 years and 9 months there, I left and I started my first company, Metasys. I ran Metasys for 7 years. And in the 7 years, we grew to number 151 on the Inc. 500 list. By the way, the Inc. 500 even has that. Even that list has inflation. It's now the Inc. 5000. But in those days, it was the Inc. 500. And we grew to about 151 in the Inc. 500. And then we successfully exited and I sold the business. That took me 7 years. And from the outside looking in, we were very successful. We were on magazines, newspapers, a lot of coverage on us. But for the inside looking out, my goodness, it was one crisis to another crisis. And I promise you, there's probably at least 4 or 5 times when I thought the company should have died. But somehow that wall is coming and zoom, we kind of survived it. And then we get the next crisis. And then we survived that. And then the next crisis. And then suddenly everyone was celebrating our success. And I was thinking, wow, I am just grateful that I escaped with my life. I don't know how I hung on to this rocket ship as we went to the moon. So after we sold the business, I realized a few things. Number one, because a lot of entrepreneurs came out and asked for help. And so to give back to my community here in Charlotte, I helped start the EO Entrepreneurs Organization chapter in Charlotte. So a lot of entrepreneurs came out and started asking me for help. And I began to realize a few things. Number one was I wasn't as dumb as I thought I was. These poor guys had some of the same mistakes. And secondly, a lot of people were having the same challenges as I had. And then in 1999, Ram Charan wrote an article, came out in Fortune magazine called Why CEOs Fail. The punchline of why CEOs fail is not for a lack of strategy, but for a lack of execution. Not getting things done, not achieving your commitments. And I thought hard about that and realized that my success and failures at Metasys were probably because of that. It was probably because of not getting things done, not achieving my commitments on time, on budget. And so I began to explore that. So for the last 20 years, that's been something that my journey my quest actually has been to help CEOs not fail, but to succeed and achieve their dreams, because the failure rate of CEOs is extremely high. And I think that a lot of us don't let our guard down. But if we were to let our guard down, I promise you, a lot of CEOs would say, I'm scared of failing. And I think that become my quest really is to help CEOs and senior leaders not fail, and then to go on and, achieve greatness in whatever they want to do in their dreams, in their businesses, on the personal side, on the business side. So that's my quest today. And I've been doing this company, Rhythm Systems, for, the last 15 years. And I've been doing it unofficially for the last 20, which means I did it for a few years without getting paid. And then as people start asking me for help, and in the last 15, 17 years, I've been doing it professionally. So that's me.
Yeah, well done, Patrick, and congratulations on your success throughout that. And my first question is going to be talk about the external versus the internal, because that was a really interesting story you shared about Medisys. And I was thinking about successful companies that I've worked in where it is a bit the same, where on the outside you see an organization that seems like they've got everything sorted, but on the inside it's going from one fire to another. There's one disaster to another. So what I want to know is you've worked a lot with very successful companies, both your own success and then subsequently double-digit growth companies, all of these things. How much of it, I mean, we're going to talk about execution shortly, but how much of it is the ability to deal with internal ups and downs and challenges whilst on the outside projecting a brand that seems to have, we are an amazing company, you can rely on us, you can trust on us, but meanwhile in the background people are, it's almost like the metaphor around the duck that's going beautifully across the water, but underneath there's all that churn going on.
Well, I think we have to remember, first of all, that from the outside looking in, it's public relations. Public relations is marketing. So, it's like when I do reviews or do reference checks on folks, I'll ask them to give me some reference checks. It's more important that they can give me reference checks than for me to actually call the reference checks, because nobody gives me a bad reference. Right? Nobody gives me a reference that says, hey, Patrick, this guy is terrible, man. Like, why would you hire him? So, but the fact that you can give me a reference check is already a check, because nobody gives me a bad reference check. So likewise, we have to remember that, sometimes I still remember at the height of our success from the outside looking in, just like anybody else, I was a bit arrogant, probably a little bit more than a bit. And then one day, one of my mentors said to me, Patrick, you realize that this is all because you got a good marketing department, right? Even getting, on the Inc. 500, yes, it's based on facts, but it's based also on somebody willing to say, let's go and compete in that, right? Let's go fill out that form and submit ourselves. If you don't do that, you won't be in the Inc. 500. Right now, the Inc. 5000. And I haven't submitted myself for the Inc. 5000. Just haven't done it. So that's why I'm not on the Inc. 5000 today. Not because we're not growing, just because we haven't done it. So a lot of things is based on where you want to put your energy. So from the outside looking in, most of us know how to project success. And even when somebody comes to me in my darkest hour, right, they say, Patrick, how are you today? I'm not going to say, it's shitty today. I'm screwed. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, it's great. I got business coming in and got these accounts. So nobody's going to tell the press that having a bad day. That being said, I do think that, internally you have to take care of the right things. And so for me, I've always believed that, if you take care of your employees, they will then take care of your customers, and then you're going to be fine. So no matter what happens, I want to make sure that I've taken care of my employees. Never missed payroll ever in the 30 years of running a company. I also want to make sure that we are passionate about our customers' success. So we go the second mile for our customers, and we go the second mile for each other, because if I want you to go the second mile for my customer, I've got to first go the second mile for you. So, those are the key things. And I think that if you do those key things, that's part of the reason why we have crises, because if you really care deeply about a customer and a project going off the rails, you're going to fix it. That's a crisis, so you'll fix it and it'll be fine. But that's what I mean by you going from one crisis to another. At the end of the day, you've got to remember what are the most important things and take care of the most important things. Take care of employees, take care of your customers, and then the rest is going to be fine.
Yeah, this is really powerful stuff, Patrick. I want to play back what I'm taking away from it, which is around this care for your team. So if the famous quote, I'm trying to think of who this one came from. I normally know this. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And when you demonstrate that you care for your people, they then demonstrate care for you as their leader, and they start caring about the business. They start caring about their co-workers. They start caring about what we're doing here. And then that's what's going to motivate them, that when the fires start, they're going to start putting those fires out and they're going to care about the customers. So by showing that loyalty, that care, that concern, it's going to be returned in exactly the same way that they care about the place. I'm going to extrapolate and say, is it also true that the opposite is the case? So when you do not show care for the team, for the people, when those fires start, they're metaphorically going to let the building burn down. How does that sit with you?
I think the short answer to your question is yes. The long answer to your question is that I think that there are a lot of reasons why buildings burn down. And I think there are a lot of reasons why people may step up to the plate. Not that I'm encouraging this behavior, but even if you don't care enough about your people, most of us want to succeed. So my question is, why the hell are you still working there? But if you're still working there, you probably still want to be successful. And so most of us have a certain standard of pride by which we're not going to fall below. That's why if you go to some companies that really don't take care of their people, there are some folks there that have been motivated enough to stay, and they do care about the customers, or they do care about the product, or they do care about their career, and they have a reason to be there, much more self-motivated. So I don't think any one of us wants to fail. And if I'm in a burning building or a company that doesn't care about me, I'm sorry, but my first question is, why the hell are you still there? Get the hell out of there. Go do something else. But if you're still there, most of us are trying to succeed. So I think that those leaders are benefiting from the goodness of the people that work for them, because none of us really want to fail. We all want to succeed.
So let me play that back to you, because it sounds like a continuum to me. So if the environment is completely toxic, that gets to the question of why am I here? And it ends up being a revolving door, people leaving exit stage left, right? And then after that starts kicking in pride, personal pride in my work. And then if I'm in a place where I feel like people care about me, then I'm going to go the extra mile, not just pride in my own work, but I'm going to unlock all of that discretionary effort to do whatever it takes to be successful for the company and for the customers.
You know, Gallup gave us this thing called the Q12. And a lot of my customers, when they say to me, hey, how engaged are my employees? I'll say, hey, go take the Gallup Q12. It's 12 great questions. They'll tell you how successful, how engaged your employees are. So I do think that the Gallup Q12, and I'm not here today to push Gallup, and that's not my product, by the way. So Gallup's Q12, I think, gives you all you need to, if you want to really work on employee engagement. So it gives us some key hints, like, do I have a best friend at work? Do I have a boss who cares about me? Do I have the right tools to get my job done successfully? Does somebody care about my success today? Have I been given feedback in the last week? Things like that. So there is no environment that's 100% toxic, but you could say, like, of the Q12, maybe you got 4 or 5 of those questions answered correctly. And maybe one of the 4 or 5 questions is, I got my best friend right here, so I don't want to leave. So there are lots of reasons why somebody won't leave. But I'll tell you that your best people will not stay. Your best people do not have to put up with crap, and they're not going to stay. You know, I didn't realize that even about myself. I was with Oracle for 2 years and 7 or 9 months, and I had a great time. That's awesome company. And I had, in my short time there, 6 managers. So because Oracle is growing like a bunny, it's like crazy. And I had 5 great managers and 1 bad one. I lasted 6 months working for Bozo. So, you know, and I wasn't thinking, oh, you know, this person is a horrible boss. But I just wouldn't, you know, my wife asked me later, she said, wow, you know, why can't you work with this guy? I said, you know, don't get me wrong. I can work with Bozo. I just can't work for Bozo. So I have to tell you, I am not the guy who said I must have my own company. I'm the guy that was having a blast at Oracle, enjoying myself, doing great things there, having the freedom to do a lot of things. And then when I started working for Bozo and I felt that there was a lack of integrity between my boss and me, I wasn't scared. I'm like, screw this shit. I'm out of here. I'll go do something else. I don't need you successful. So your best people, unfortunately or fortunately, are going to be like that. You know, they're going to be, yeah, I'm loyal to you, but if you treat me poorly, and most of all, if I lose respect for you, man, I am out of there. So of course I had an entrepreneurial gene in me, because there are many, many other ways to get out of there, right? I could have requested a transfer. So yes, you know, in the boiling pot, I was probably an entrepreneur that was ready to be birthed. But that was the straw that broke the camel's back, or the key that unlocked my door that allowed me to leave. And Oracle is a great company. I am still a fan of that company. So I left not because of the company. I left because of my boss. And I would say to all the leaders that are listening to this, do not, how should I put it? This is how it is. When someone leaves and we ask them, so why did you leave? And the person says, well, it's because of something else. And then we feel better. We'll say, yep, I didn't suck that bad. He left because of fill in the blanks. But that's probably not true. I mean, there's enough research that tells us that people quit people. People don't quit companies. Now, yes, if somebody offers me twice the salary or some crazy, wonderful career opportunity, okay. Those are rare though. Usually somebody leaves because the person they're working for wasn't a great leader.
Yeah, there's multiple things jumping into my mind here, Patrick, but to me, you are the living example of those statements around people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad bosses, and you've been through that. The other one was that your best people are most likely those that have got alternatives that they could go to. So they become a flight risk when they're reporting to a bad boss. And here you are years later or decades later with great admiration for the company. It wasn't the company that you left. It was, in your words, Bozo. You left Bozo, right?
I'll tell you, your best people are paradoxes because at the same time, they will do what it takes to make the company successful. They will go the extra mile. They'll run through a wall for you, keywords for you. But then they also don't have the fear of saying, oh my gosh, how am I going to get another job? So they don't have that fear. Or they have less of that fear. So I would say that it's a paradox because sometimes your best people, for whatever reason, they're going to hang out with you till the ship sinks. Okay. But then sometimes they'll be like, dude, I'm done. So that's that magical je ne sais quoi that you can't, there's no rule. Once you deal with human beings, boom, you're out. It's just, you got to read the tea leaves. You got to work with the people, see the people and figure it out. But in general, I would just say in general, your best people are loyal because I don't want to give the impression that great people are loyal. Most of them are loyal, but you've done something that made them think that you're not worthy or you've betrayed my trust or you've done, so those are some of the reasons why I left Oracle. It wasn't because it was more that the manager himself did things that made me think, I don't want to work for this guy, and then I'm gone.
Absolutely, they'll be loyal, but they'll be the ones that will back themselves in the event that they walk out the door today, that they'll get a job tomorrow kind of thing. The other interesting thing you brought up there was about the exit interview. And I think there's an important place for exit interviews, but we need to take a lens of that the majority of people in the exit interview take the approach of, I don't want to burn any bridges here. So some people will be very open and transparent. This is why I'm leaving. And others may be a little bit more diplomatic and go, you know what, I just got an offer that I'm going to pursue and it's a great learning opportunity for me, etc. So there's a lesson there. If someone is leaving in an exit interview and they tell you diplomatic things, that may not be the full story. How does that sit with you?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, right? In an exit interview, you have a few different things happening. One category would be people who are pissed off. Okay, well, they're pissed off. They're going to give you more venom than you deserve. So you can get a very negative thing. But what happens is that people look at it and go, oh, that guy was just being emotional. So you discount that because most of us human beings, we're trying to protect our own psyches as well. So you get someone who's pissed off. He tells you the truth, but he tells it to you in such a emotional way that you're led to believe, well, probably wasn't really true. The guy's being emotional. This is an outlier. Okay, then you get the other guy who wants, as you said, keep the bridges going, not burn them. She's going to say, well, wasn't this, it was a good opportunity, blah, blah, blah. And then your psyche, again, protecting you would be like, see, it wasn't me, it was something else. And then you may get what would be great, and this is very hard to find, is the person who's leaving who really cares about you, and they can say, Mick, I'm leaving, and, really with calmness, Jack just wasn't a good manager. And, I felt betrayed by this and that. And, I wouldn't be leaving except for Jack. And then the exit interview will always say, oh my God, why didn't you tell us that? Well, the truth is I did.
Yeah. Was anyone listening?
So I think the exit interview is a tool that has less effectiveness than people realize, because for it to be effective, you have to have the right input coming from the person leaving, and you have to have the right psyche to receive at the same time. So it takes a lot of things to get it right. But I would say that there's enough research out there that says that people leave people. And so I think that it's very hard for a leader to do this. But when someone would leave, I think the first thing you should do as a leader is just really sit down with yourself and ask, have I really been the best leader for this person? And what can I learn? What can I learn from what I have done as a leader for this person? Now, I may have done things that from my perspective are positive, but maybe the other person, registered it as negative. So this is why, by the way, you asked me earlier before our show started, about why rhythm. And I'll tell you why rhythm. Why rhythm is because I believe that for a company to be successful, you must get into a regular rhythm. And it's not so much, I think companies that are very focused on financial indexes, too focused on financial indexes, aren't the best companies. I think when you're really focused on playing the game, you win the game. But you're too focused on winning the game, you get tight and you lose the game. So really, I think every company needs a good rhythm. And the rhythm is kind of like the suspension of a car. You're riding, and the faster you drive and the harder you turn, the better your suspension better be. So what I mean by that is, Mike Prager, one of my longtime customers, my first customer actually, this is why I know I've been doing things for free for a while, because I've been coaching Michael for 23 years. And Mike Prager runs Avid Exchange, CEO of Avid Exchange here in Charlotte. And, I helped him go from zero to a unicorn to an IPO in 2021. And today he runs a public company. Avid Exchange is 23 years old. So that's how I know. I've been doing this for 23 years. And I would tell you that what is amazing is Mike said to me once, he said, Patrick, the reason I really like rhythm is because it gives me an operating system to manage the chaos around me. He said, chaos is going to happen. So it's not a question of whether or not you're going to have chaos, but rhythm gives me a way to process that chaos in an objective, calm manner. So that's why it's called rhythm, because truly, I believe that if you want to be successful, you got to get yourself into a good rhythm. And by the way, this is true of almost everything. So if you want to get fit, you don't go to the gym and exercise one time. No, you get yourself into a rhythm and you choose. I'm going to work out 3 times a week on cardio, 2 times a week on strength training, and 2 days I'm going to let myself rest. Something like that. You decide on that rhythm. And then whether or not you get fit is whether or not you do that rhythm. It's not whether you went to the gym today or yesterday. It's whether or not you went to the gym continuously for the next year, right? So that's how you get fit. It's not from one workout. Likewise with a company, you are going to hit a crisis. Now, when you hit crisis and chaos, how do you process that? Can you process that in a calm way? Can you go, yep, I got it. We have a weekly meeting coming up every single Monday, and that's where I'm going to process my problems. I got a daily sync up coming up over here. This company just called us, told us they're mad at us. I'm going to process it right there. So having the right rhythm for things gives you a place to process these things, because the chaos is going to happen. Chaos comes with growth. And if you have no chaos, I would say you're not pushing yourself hard enough.
Yeah. Great things happen at the edge of our comfort zone, which is the element of that, organizational sense is chaos. So I'm getting a better feel now for the word rhythm. Some words that are coming to my mind are around the word consistency, but it sounds like I'm going to add something here to the word consistency, and that would be intentional consistency. So where you're setting an intent, you're putting in a structure, and then you're being very intentional with your operating rhythm, and that you're going to stick to. And the opposite of that would be disorganized inconsistency. That's where we end up with bozo. This is where we end up with leaders that are a bit erratic and a bit all over the place. So tell me more. How is my reflection here about intentional consistency, structured? There's a place and a time for what's needed in the business. How does that sit with you?
You hit the nail on the head perfectly. I think that what happens is that you can't predict what a business is going to go through. What you can do is choose how you're going to react. So if you can create the environment that gives you the best potential for the best reactions, and you can be even more proactive so that some of those reactions are more proactive versus a true reaction, then you're better off. The more you can predict what's going to happen, the better off you are. So intention is key. When Mike at Avid Exchange first had a big investment from Bain Capital, and he said to me, he said, Patrick, I really want to do well for my investor. I need to get to know him better. And I said, Mike, why don't you just put yourself on a rhythm with Matt? Once a week, talk to him and just put yourself on a rhythm, and we'll see. You get to know what, how Matt is, etc., his lead investor. And then that time he asked me, he said, well, I'm curious to know what he really wants. I said, well, why don't you just ask him? Just ask him. So some of these things are really not that hard, but we make it harder than it needs to be, so we think like, oh, I got to figure out what the guy wants. Okay, well, why don't you not figure it out? Why don't you just ask him? So much easier. But we don't think that way. We think, so this is why, your audience has some coaches as well. And I do think that being able to be intentional, about how you ask your clients the right questions is really what you need. I think, coaches go through a career progression of at first thinking that I got to have answers. Then we realize that actually they didn't hire me for my answers. I mean, they really hired me to be empathetic, to be with them, to help them through difficulties. And those don't come from answers. Those come from listening, compassion, curiosity, and questions. That's where that comes from. So oftentimes the answer is really a very simple question. Like, I'm trying to figure out what he needs. Okay, well, just go ask him. And we laugh about such a simple answer. Everyone calms down, and then it doesn't seem so hard to do anymore.
Yeah, hearing some powerful things there, Patrick. The first one is the word simplicity, but it's simple but powerful. And what I've seen in your framework is exactly that: asking the right questions at the right time and staying curious and holding space. Because the person, when you're asking them a question, you're actually taking them on a journey. It's not like they actually have the answers quite often, but you're taking them on a journey to find that answer. When I was listening to you before about rhythm, and I was hearing about, gym going and all this kind of stuff, and you used the word reaction, I'm going to add the word response, right? So how much of this rhythm is also your ability to respond when things don't go to plan? And if I can extrapolate on your gym metaphor for a moment, going to the gym once doesn't make you fit. It's the consistency, the intentional consistency, the rhythm over time that will achieve results. Equally, missing the gym once doesn't make you unfit. And it's the people that are able to metaphorically get back on the horse straight away when something doesn't go to plan. They're able to reset and relaunch themselves are the ones that are successful. So in this rhythm that you're talking about, and you will be thrown curveballs in business, it's your ability to respond and go, right, okay, we missed that one, but you know what? We're going to get the next one, as opposed to quitting and going, oh, that didn't work. How does that sit with you?
There was a lot of wisdom in what you just said. You always have another opportunity. I think that's the part that a lot of leaders don't realize. When you're in that moment, this is not the only time you're going to face this problem. You're going to face it again. And, it's like playing a video game. In a video game, you encounter a monster, kill the monster, you lose a couple of health points, and you progress. If you lose too many health points, you die. The game's over. In business, that's called payroll. So if you can't make payroll, you run out of cash, you die. You can't make payroll with profit. Right? I can't come to you and go, Mick, it's great. I'm going to pay you with profit. You're like, no, Patrick, I want some cash. I can't pay my mortgage with profit. Profit's actually a lagging indicator. You die way before you're profitable if you run out of cash. So you've got these challenges, and they're going to come at you again and again and again. So in a video game, you encounter a monster, you slay the monster, you go to the next level. And interesting, at the next level, you've got new monsters, yes, but oftentimes your previous monster shows up again, except that this time the monster is bigger, stronger, meaner. It's bigger version, badder version of the monster. And that's how it is running a business. I promise you will face that challenge again. I think that there was at least 4 times at Medisys that I almost ran out of cash. Never ran out of cash, but almost did. At least 4 times. And the first time it was 20 grand. Okay, I just won't pay myself or my executive team and we'll make payroll. No problem. And then the day came when, in fact, one of my senior partners actually left the company when that nut was $500,000. She said to me, the stress of payroll is killing me. She said, it used to be that we could just say, Patrick, let's just forego our salary for half a month or something and we can make payroll. But it dawned on me that number is now $500,000. It's like, even if we forego our salaries, we can't make payroll, right? So, and then later on, that number was $2 million, like $2 million a month in payroll. Like, I don't pay myself $2 million a month. So how I used to make payroll when the monster was small, 10,000, was I could just easily say, don't pay myself, I'll make payroll. When that monster was 40,000, I could easily say, hey, executive team, founders, but the founders of the company will make the sacrifice and we'll still make payroll. But then when that monster is $500,000, it's a different ball game. And when it's at 2 million, it's a totally different ball game. But it's the same problem, is my point. It's the same monsters. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I would say that you've got to have a rhythm to solve these problems, learn from them, figure out how would I solve this next time? And how do I, as a senior leader, level myself up to get stronger and better for the next next go around. So simplicity is key. I think that think, plan, do. In the think category, it's about really spending the time to decide how you're going to be really focused, because our research shows us that most companies fail for the following reasons. They lack focus, they lack clarity, they lack alignment, they lack accountability, and then they die. That's it. It's not that hard. You lack focus because as you get more and more successful, you get more and more opportunities. You get this wonderful buffet of opportunities and you overeat and then you die. You overeat from the buffet of opportunity. You have too many things to do. This is a disease that comes from success. It's a disease that comes from success where you're not focused. You have too many opportunities and you don't know how to say no. What people don't realize is that when you say yes to something, you are actually saying no to a bunch of other things. But if you don't understand that, then you keep saying yes, 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 and your resources are depleted before you realize it. So if you've got $10, you can't buy $100 worth of stuff. You can only buy $10 worth of stuff. So that means that you've chosen. So unfortunately, some people don't choose well. They're not thinking that way. So they don't have enough space to think, and they've chosen to spend the $10. And then they go, oh shit, I need that too. Well, you should have thought of it earlier, right? No, I absolutely need that too. Okay, so you please work overtime and then we'll get that too. But really what you got to do is look at all your opportunities and have a simple, objective way to process that and choose, and then be very focused. I've chosen these 3 or 4 things. The rest I've said no to. So when we prioritize in our process, in our think process, we help you choose the strategic, what we call them winning moves. What are your 3 or 4 growth strategies that will help you double the business in the next 3 to 5 years? These are your growth strategies. Every company needs them. Some companies forget about them because they are in the wonderful joy of success, and then their strategies get old, but they're too busy harvesting. They forgot to plant new seeds, new growth strategies. So one day they harvest, they turn around and go, oh crap, my old product is old. I don't have anything new. And I remember when Apple released the iPad, I'm a big Apple fan, and somebody asked Tim Cook, at a time, Steve Jobs was of course still the CEO and alive, and they asked Tim Cook, who was the chief operating officer at the time, aren't you afraid that the iPad is going to cannibalize sales of the iPhone? And he said that it's going to get cannibalized. I'd rather we cannibalize ourselves than somebody cannibalizing us. So this is a company that understood they had to birth new strategies. And sometimes companies get so consumed in doing the work, in delivering the work, that they forget that they need a renewal of growth strategies. So strategy is not strategy. You can't wake up in the morning and go, crap, I need a new strategy. Go to my innovation lab and birth one right now. It doesn't work that way. It's like saying, I need a baby, put 9 women in a room, get 1 baby in 1 month. It doesn't work that way. You put 9 women in a room, you're going to get 9 babies in 9 months. It still takes 9 months to make a baby. So same thing with strategy. You can't just wake up and go, crap, I'm screwed. I need a new strategy tomorrow. You won't have one. Therefore, the first rhythm is about think, and it's about making sure that you have the right growth strategies and you renew them and you think deeply about them. And then you choose the top most important ones. And now you've prioritized. Now you've actually said, I choose these, and therefore I'm saying no to all these other ideas. That is really hard to do, but that's the first rhythm, the think rhythm.
All right, so let's unpack this a little bit further. So the simplicity of the framework is think rhythm, plan rhythm, do rhythm. And we've just had a really good description of the think rhythm. I'd love to play back what I took away from that. The key messages I took away were about strategy and the importance of what you say yes to and what you say no to, and being able to focus on what you know that you can execute with excellence and not spreading yourself so thin, because, if you try to do 36 things at once, you're going to do them poorly. If you do 5 things, you've got a good chance that you're going to do them well. But then you need it to be dynamic. So, and what I took from your book, by the way, if I take it a step further, is you need to create that room, that time to think. So in your rhythm, we have time to think so that you've always got one eye on the near, mid and long-term future, so that your strategy is dynamic, that it's not just something that you write once a year with your leadership team and everyone claps and says, yeah, well done, that's the strategy done for this year. And then you go back to whatever you were doing the day before the strategy offsite, right? So what I'm hearing is think rhythm is carving out time to go, right, what are we saying yes to? What are we saying no to? But what are our next winning moves? So it's not just a once and done, it's a dynamic movement. How does that sit with you?
Yes, I think you mirrored me very well there. I think you got the essence of the think rhythm. And the think rhythm, and these are not linear rhythms. Sometimes when you read a book, you might get the wrong impression that these are linear rhythms, but you didn't get that impression. You realize that I want to create space to think. So, and by the way, it's supposed to be so simple that a fifth grader can get it, And I still remember a long time ago, I have two daughters and they're now in their 20s, Joy's 23 and Nicole's 20. But a long time ago, I was struggling with something and my little daughter jokingly looked at me and said, "Daddy, you got this, right? I mean, think, plan, do." She was applying to something else, but she was right. I was stressing over something and she was like, "Daddy, you got this. It's think, plan, do. So think about it first." And she was right in the sense that I was stressed about something and I wasn't thinking about it anymore. I was really like stressing over the doing side of it. It seemed like a lot of things to do. But if I just stood back and thought about it, so back into the think rhythm, I would realize, which I did thanks to the prompting of my daughter, that actually half the stuff I was about to do, I actually didn't have to do. I know you asked me to do it, but that doesn't mean I got to do it. So sometimes our do bucket gets so full because we've said yes to all the requests that are around us. So yes, I would say that the other thing about the think rhythm is you really want to get focused. And I think the only way focus happens is if you've picked a few things. I think, Stephen Covey got it right in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And you got to put first things first. Well, do you even know what the first things are? So that's about prioritization. You got to know what the first things are. Otherwise, you'd be just working on too many things. So I would say the think rhythm does a few things. First is that on a regular basis, I want you to look at your strategies. I don't want you to do strategic work once a year at the annual strategic meeting. And then a lot of companies have done this wrong where they write a wonderful big strategic document and it's thick. I call this a beached whale. It sits on the shelf and gets opened once a year. That's not how strategy works. That's not how execution works either. So you want it to be simple. You want to be able to look at your strategy and say, this is in play very intentionally. This is in play. Therefore, this is our focus. And so we have a concept of, we call this your mountain strategy, where, Jim Collins gave us the concept, the author of Good to Great, give us the concept of your big, hairy, audacious goal, which is that long-term goal. So the way we do it is we draw a mountain, we put your BHAG at the very top. Your core foundation is at the bottom. Your core foundation are things like, your core values, your purpose, your, who you serve, your customers, things like that, your core customers, things like that. And then we plot your base camps to walk up this mountain. And what happens oftentimes is people get mixed up. They're like, we want to do all these strategies, but some of these strategies don't need to be done till maybe 4 years from now. So we'll slot them away in the next curve. So what happens is that entrepreneurs especially, we're not willing to give up ideas. And so there are actually 3 answers you can give when asked, should I do this, yes or no? It's not yes or no. It's yes, it's no, and it's later. So the later bucket creates a lot of possibilities. Whereas when it's just yes or no, it's very difficult for an entrepreneur to choose. Everything's going to be yes. If you told me that, like yes or no, well, it's going to be yes. Even if I said no to you, these become what I call back pocket priorities. I just don't tell you I'm working on them. So really, I want people to be able to go yes, no, later. So later goes into the next curve and we'll process that later. So in the think rhythm, we'll process that later. And then in the plan rhythm, later means every quarter, every year, every quarter, every year, every quarter, every year. So you will look at your stuff and you go, okay, we're not going to process this right now. That's fine. We'll put it in the parking lot at the next quarterly planning session. We will process that and look at it objectively with all the opportunities we have and decide if we want to do it or not. So it takes a bit of discipline versus just waking up tomorrow. I got a new idea come across my desk. Yes, we're going to do it. No, Ken, I don't want you to do that. I want you to say, it's week 5 in a 13-week quarter and I've got a new idea. Okay, well, it's week 5, guys. If I implement this new idea right now, I will distract the whole team from the handful of priorities that we've already agreed to. As a leader, I should not do that. If I change their priorities, they will feel unsuccessful. They will feel like their efforts went to waste. So I should let them finish. Now, if it's a priority that I chose poorly, then I should suck it up and tell them, I'm sorry, I got to change it. I chose poorly. But otherwise, let them finish their work because in the next quarter is 13 weeks. And so in 5 or 6 weeks, we're going to plan the next quarter. I mean, your idea probably won't die just because we waited 5 weeks. So we put in the parking lot at the next planning cycle. cycle, we will now look at that and make a decision. Should we prioritize that work, yes or no? So surprisingly, a lot of chaos is created by senior leaders who don't have the self-control to say, let's wait 3 weeks to process this idea. I want to process it now. Now creates chaos. And you have to choose. You have to be intentional and understand that. If this is really that important, yes, now. Customer calls me and says, Patrick, I'm quitting you unless you solve this problem. Yes, now. That's not Jack called me. He wants to quit. That's okay. We'll put in the parking lot. We'll talk about it. No, now. Okay, I get that. But most of the issues are not from that. Most of the issues are from, a senior person waking up one day going, I got a great idea. Let's work on that. And then the team's like, but I got these 5 other things to do. Which one should I stop? Okay, stop that one. Okay, now you just wasted my effort. Or no, I don't want you to stop anything. Now you just piled on. So you either turn something off or you pile on. Both are not good solutions. The question is, if it's not, we create urgency sometimes when we don't need to have urgency. So therefore, that's why that rhythm allows you to now take that, discuss it, process it, and relax. And that really is, how should I put it? It is simple. It is just that it's not more complicated than that. Being able to have a place to say, okay, I'm going to put this over here, and then at the right time, we'll look at it, but not to get my team all worked up and into chaos when I don't need to.
Yeah, I'm liking this quarterly cycle, and I'm glad it's got nothing to do with quarterly results or shareholders or anything like that. It's just about a workable, I'm going to call it a sprint for want of a better word. It's longer than an agile sprint, which would be 2 weeks, but I like this 13-week period. And here's why. A focused team that are all rowing in the same direction, they can make incredible progress in a 13-week period. And like you said, I'm going to call it a distraction, even though it might be an interesting one. This distraction that comes up halfway through the 13 weeks, it's still going to be around 7 weeks from now. So it can go into intentionally, not flipping and flopping and changing all the time. This great idea that someone come up with mid-cycle, it will survive until the next one. And then you can put a bit of forethought and some planning before you get into that next quarterly cycle.
And sacrifice too, because if you choose that for the next cycle, you're sacrificing something else. I think that's something that my message to all our leaders listening is, guys, you're always sacrificing. So by choosing, you've sacrificed B, C, D, and E. Because if you are successful, you live in a world of unlimited opportunities with limited resources. You're always sacrificing.
And by the way, congratulations with your daughters. They're clearly listening to you if they can give you that guidance. Because now I'm thinking at all those people that are listening to this show right now that have got a to-do list in front of you. First of all, what's on your to-don't list is my first question. But secondly, have a think about what Patrick is talking about. The question is, and we're going to get into the do rhythm in a minute, are you just doing? Like, say you're getting to work every day and you're looking at it, you're creating a to-do list and you just spend your whole time doing? Or are you in your cycle giving yourself a rhythm where you can think, where you can plan, and then you can do, instead of just doing and doing and doing and chasing your tail the whole time. And it's about the other thing that jumped into my mind when you're talking about the 13-week cycles and the saying yes, no, or later is the word discipline. And you use the word execution very early in our discussion, Patrick. And now I'm going to add the word disciplined execution. It's to have that discipline that when that shiny object comes mid-cycle, that you look at it, you admire it, but you go, yeah, later. Not instant yes, but it was, yeah, later. Unless it is one of those fires that you're talking about where you do have to respond instantly. There'll always be exceptions, but shiny object comes and you go, that is a good idea, later. So how does the word disciplined execution sit with you?
It sits beautifully with me. I think that you're absolutely right. I think that you've got to be able to do that. And by the way, as a leader, you have the responsibility to do that. So there are 5 things in emotional intelligence. And I do believe that all leaders need emotional intelligence to lead well. One of the 5 things is self-awareness. You got to get to know yourself better and better and better. The second thing, though, is self-control, is being able to know when to hold yourself back. So discipline, self-control, the kind of in the same realm. And you can't, as a leader, you don't want to just react and go, hey, I've got this shiny object, or I'm mad about something. And then I go and engage with my employees that way, or my team that way. You have to have some self-awareness that, hey, I'm really excited about this idea, but it's week 8. I don't think so. You got to have that. That's emotional intelligence. So I do think that you're absolutely right. And that's why this rhythm gives you a place for stuff. For me, I've always found that if I have a place for stuff, I'm happier. I'm like, okay, I can't wait 4 weeks. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Versus if I don't even have a place for it, I'm going to react right now because I don't have a place for it, right? So I'm going to react right now. So having a place for it is part of the reason why we do this rhythm. And every week in the do rhythm, you get together with your team. And this is where you make the necessary adjustments to make sure that you're going to come in on time, on track, on your commitments. So we have a weekly meeting in our do rhythm, and it's not a status meeting. In fact, I like to think of it as, we call it the weekly adjustment meeting, the WAM. And the WAM is about taking action and making the necessary adjustments when things aren't working well, or when you've discovered something that's working really well. Maybe it can be employed in other parts of the company and really improve your results as well. So the do rhythm is about how you process every single week. And I like to say, look, the only way you're going to have a great year is to have 4 great quarters. And the only way you're going to have 4 great quarters is to have a great one at a time. And then within a quarter, you got 13 weeks. So you're going to have a great week, 1 week at a time. And my question I'm going to pose all our listeners is, if you think about it, how many weeks have you wasted in a quarter? Like, are there any weeks where you can remember where you've gone home and your spouse or your significant other asks you, how was your week? And you go, I had a great week. I was really, really busy. And your significant other asks you, great. And what did you achieve this week? And you go, wow, I don't know what I did. I worked hard. Well, I would suggest to you that there was some waste in that week, and I've done that. I've gone home, and I'm the author of the book Rhythm. Yes. And my wife has asked me, how was your week? And I'm like, great. I just worked my butt off. And she'll ask me, well, what did you guys actually achieve this week? I'm like, I don't know, but a lot, I'm sure. Okay, well, that was a week where I wasn't intentional enough. That was a week where I probably worked hard on my priorities, but not hard enough because I probably worked on other things other than my priorities. So I do think that you have to kind of chill a little bit, calm down, be self-aware, reflect, and understand what you've achieved this week and plan the next week, because the way to be successful is 1 week at a time, 1 quarter, 13 weeks, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. Now you had a great year. That's how it works.
Yeah, really good, Patrick. So a couple of things that jumped to me when you were talking there. First, there's a place for everything. I love that. And I'll share with you really openly, one of my fears is I am the kind of person who has 30 ideas in a day and 28 of them will be garbage and 2 will be interesting. I do have a fear that when I have a great idea and it's not something that I can implement instantly, that I'm going to forget about it. But I also know that as soon as I write it down somewhere, and you used the word parking lot earlier, and that's the term I use too. As soon as I write down, my brain relaxes, and then I can get creative again. In my current endeavor, whether it's thinking or planning or doing, I can get creative again because I got it out of my brain. I parked it somewhere knowing, okay, I can relax now. I'll get to that later, to use your word. I'll get to that later, but I can relax because I wrote it down. So I love that. Also love this WAM, this weekly adjustment meeting, because we know life happens. It throws curveballs at us. Not everything is going to go perfectly to plan. You're going to have obstacles that come up from time to time. New information becomes available that you didn't know about last week. All kinds of things are happening, but that doesn't mean that your strategy and plan is wrong. It means that we need to make a minor adjustment. Pivot left, pivot right, jump over, whatever the case may be. If you've got your finger on the pulse, you can make those minor adjustments. And then this thing about accomplishment, I'm going to throw something to you that I learned from Brendan Bouchard, this one. I love this concept called a Friday finisher, which is where all the way back at Monday, I decide on 3 things for that week that when I finish on Friday and I close my laptop, I'm going to have finished those 3 things. So every week there's at least 3 things that I can be proud of to say, you know what, I did it. And that helps me keep focused.
I love that. In my book, one of the chapters, I call it the meeting with myself. And that is the equivalent to your Friday finisher. Having that meeting with yourself to see, did you accomplish the 3 things for this week? And then to think about what's the next 3 things for next week, because that's what bring to the adjustment meeting. Hey, these things we worked on, we need to make an adjustment, didn't quite go the way we wanted to. These 3 things are what I'm going to focus on this week. So I love that Friday finisher.
All right, now this is related to that, but I want to bring it into the rhythm now and working in a team and having these rhythms as a team, and including, you were talking before about essentially having a coach off the side that's going to ask you lots of questions and help you explore, etc. If I throw the word accountability at you, where does the word accountability come into the rhythm?
Yeah. So when we started, I said, our research shows us that these are the key things: focus, clarity, alignment, accountability. So, accountability is made up of two words, right? Account and ability. You put that together, it's accountability. I think for a lot of people, it's a scary word because they have misunderstood the word for consequences. So if somebody calls me and says, Patrick, how do I hold this person accountable? When I hear that voice, I'm like, dude, you're too late, man. Because what you're really asking me is, how do I whack this guy with the consequences? That's what you're really asking when you use the word that way. But that's how most of us use it. It's, hey, I need to hold this guy accountable. No, you're already at consequences. I'm sorry. So really, accountability is a really good word. I think that we all need to be accountable. How else are you going to make your commitments? I started early by saying my quest, and I've visited thousands of companies, and I speak all over the world. So I've visited thousands of companies, and my quest to help people not fail, but to succeed. And they fail because of a lack of achieving commitments. You cannot achieve your commitments if you don't have accountability to that commitment. So accountability is a really good word. Is if in week 5, somebody comes to me and says, Patrick, I can see that I am having difficulty with this commitment. I am not being accountable to the commitment. I call this, by the way, in my book, The Gift of Red. So we status something red, yellow, green. Green means I'm on track to achieve the goal, and red means I am failing. Red is an unacceptable level of performance, and that means I'm failing. And yellow is in between. And then super green is the stretch goal, because all your A players need stretch goals. So red, yellow, green, super green. And so because we have a very objective way to clarify the goal, you can now be accountable to a very clear goal. If you start off with a muddy goal, you can't be accountable to that. So I want you to be accountable to your goal, to your commitment. And so if somebody walks in and says, hey, Patrick, it's week 5 and, I'm statusing this thing red, you don't want to get mad. I can tell you that much. You don't want to go, Mick, I can't believe you did this. What the hell's wrong with you, man? Okay, well, that's probably the last time you're going to say to me, it's week 5, I got something that's red. Next time you're going to go, it's week 5, oh shit, it's red. I better fix it before Patrick sees it. And then you're going to surprise me in week 13 when it is red. So the way it's supposed to work is in week 5, you're accountable to your commitment and you say, I got something not going on very well, and you bring it to me. I consider it a gift because you now have given me, if it was week 5, you've now given me 8 weeks to help you solve that problem. And that needs to be the attitude of the leaders. You're giving me 8 weeks to help you solve that problem. You're going to solve the problem though, but I'm going to help you, coach you, give you feedback, give you more resources, whatever. But we are now accountable and aligned on this goal. I'm going to help you. So I call this the gift of red, because otherwise you're just going to work on it, continue to fail on it by yourself for the next 8 weeks. And then we all get surprised week 13, didn't achieve the goal. So accountability is critical to achieving your commitments. And to me, that's the better way to do it versus saying, hey, how do I hold you accountable on week 13? You're really saying, how do I whack you on the head with consequences?
I love the way you're framing this, but absolutely the way I think as well, Patrick. So first of all, if I think about Tim McClure for a moment, so one of his famous quotes is, the worst fear that any organization should have is when their most passionate people become quiet. And if people are coming to you with red and you're playing whack-a-mole and you're hitting them over the head every time, guess what? You're not going to see much red anymore. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that people are hiding it from you as long as they possibly can until they can't possibly hide it from you anymore. So I love the safety that you talking about. I love the co-creation, that once the red is out there, you're holding space for each other and working out how to solve it together. Then the accountability, what I'm extrapolating a little bit using your model is then I'm accountable to the commitment I made. I'm accountable to the outcome. Then when I get into my WAM, into my weekly adjustment meeting, because I'm accountable to that commitment, I'm going to work out whatever I have to do. Do I have to pivot left? Do I have to pivot right? What do I need to adjust so I hit the commitment instead of just giving up?
That's correct. And you're always looking, at the commitment you've made for the quarter, for the year. So you should know, are you on track to achieving that commitment? And if you're not, at any time that you're not, it's either red or yellow. It's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out together. I think that's critical. I think that today's companies are moving very fast. No one person can solve the problems. So when something goes red or yellow, you really do need to have enough trust in your team to collaborate, and not just within your team, but that the solution might actually result reside in another team across the hall. So we need to collaborate, not just within our team, but be vulnerable enough to say, hey, this one, Sam over there in the other team, I really need his expertise. Or Joan over there in the other team, I really need her expertise. Let me bring her over here and get her to reflect on this a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. So people need to get rid of the old way of thinking, which is, it's my problem. I have to solve it. Otherwise, you think I'm a useless bum. I can't do my job. It's my job. No. Yeah, it's your job. But don't you want to get it done quicker with more brains working on it? So, it's amazing what can be achieved when you don't care who gets the credit, right? Let's just go achieve this thing together. It's amazing what can be achieved.
This has been wonderful, Patrick. There's been lots of deep content here. So I'm going to, in a very quick way, try to summarize some of the key takeaways here, and then we'll move into our rapid run. But of course, correct me if you disagree with anything I'm going to say in this summary. So what we're talking about here is a rhythm of think, plan, do. Importantly, Patrick clarified that they are all in parallel. These are all rhythms that are continuous. It's not you think once and that's it, think's done. It's something that you're continuing to do. In the think rhythm, we're carving out time to make sure that we do have time to think. We're thinking about what we're going to do. We're thinking about what we're not going to do. We've got one eye on the short, medium, and long-term future. We're thinking about our winning moves. We know that we need to be dynamic in our thinking. In our planning, we're now thinking about what are we going to do this quarter versus what can wait until next quarter, and having that disciplined execution to be able to, when the shiny object comes along, go, no, we're in the middle of this quarter. That can wait until next quarter or even the quarter after that, so that the team have got that 13-week period where they can focus and achieve incredible things. And then in our do rhythm, we're looking at our weekly adjustments. We're going, okay, what went well last week? What didn't go well? What obstacle is in front of us? How do we need to address that obstacle so that we can make these little pivots and meet our commitments and be accountable to the outcomes that we committed to in this quarter, with the safety to be able to stick up a hand and say, hey, this actually isn't going to plan when it's not, so that everyone can gather around and help you to achieve that commitment. So think, plan, do, but create a rhythm where you create space, you create time, where you can do all three of those things so that you can be successful as a business. How's the summary, Patrick? Anything you want to add to that?
I think all leaders should expect things to go wrong. So therefore, you need the time and space. It's amazing how often I'm in a planning session and people plan to account for their time 100%. And then I ask them, I say, well, how often does stuff happen here? Well, of course, all the time. I go, okay, so maybe in your planning of your time, don't you need a little bit of buffer just so you can take care of stuff that happens? Because stuff happens. But it's funny because people don't think that way. People think, no, I got to be efficient. I got to be effective. I can do this. I can do. So if you're planning as you think through your plan and do rhythms, if you're planning to maximize your time for the quarter 100%, you already messed up, because stuff will happen. And when stuff happens, now you don't have enough energy to take care of that. So yeah, thank you very much. I think that was a great summary. I think you should teach my class, man. That's great.
All right. Oh, well, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that. So I'd like to take us now to our rapid round. So these are the same 4 questions that we ask all of our guests. So what's the one thing that you know now, Patrick, that you wish you knew when you were 20?
When I was 20, I had a lot more adrenaline, a lot more energy, and I was too fast. I wish I knew that I should just relax a little bit more and let go of stuff. Yeah, I don't really need to control things to get the right outcome. So that's the one thing I wish I had learned.
Yeah, really powerful. What's your favorite book?
It's an old classic, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's the start of everything, being effective.
You said before about putting first things first, seeking first to understand before being understood. There's so many life lessons in that book, not just leadership lessons, life lessons. Yeah, really good. What's your favorite quote?
So my favorite quote is from Yoda, which is, do or do not, there is no try.
I love it, Patrick. And finally, there's going to be people listening to this, just like me, who are completely enthralled with your work, have learnt so much from today like I have, and they're going to want to know more about rhythm systems and about you and about your books. How do people get in contact with you if they would like to know more or they'd like to take advantage of your services?
So thank you. Come to my website, patrickthean.com. And if you scroll down there, I would encourage everyone to just spend 5 minutes, take my organizational effectiveness test. It's my gift to you. Take 5 minutes and it'll give you an assessment of where you are in your effectiveness. And hopefully that'll be helpful to you. So that'll be my gift to anybody who can spare 5 minutes just to take that test on my website.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Patrick. I've absolutely adored this conversation, and I know that the audience is going to get wonderful value out of your model, your framework, your wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I enjoyed our time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Leadership Project at mixbeers.com. A huge call out to Faris Sadek for his video editing of all of our video content, and to all of the team at TLP. Joanne Goes On, Gerald Calabo, and my amazing wife, Say Spears. I could not do this show without you. Don't forget to subscribe to the Leadership Project YouTube channel, where we bring you interesting videos each and every week. And you can follow us on social, particularly on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, in the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and join us on this journey as we learn together and lead together.